Chapter 2. Welcome back.
Hey!
What do you think? Does that look good? John was pointing to a chunk of hollow wood painted burnt orange, part of a set to make a birdhouse. It was a few days after the flower festival and we were at the mall. John asked me to hang out with him. Hey, welcome back. Asked me to hang out with him, and when I accepted, he immediately came here. It was a little confusing to me. We were talking to each other more than usual, hanging out with each other all the time, but I didn't know whether to consider the flower festival as our first date. I wasn't sure whether he had feelings for me either, and I had feelings for him, but what were they? It was all too confusing, so I almost preferred the general silence on that subject. Right now, hanging out with each other was fun. I didn't want to think about it harder than that. We were window shopping and chatting with each other, but of course, when John saw this birdhouse in his shop window, he stopped. Now, nothing I did would make him budge. Well, I do like the colors.
It is a home fit for a king. It is heaven. It is the seventh kingdom. Buy it for me.
I glanced at the price tag and gasped. Maybe not. Let's, Jacques, do you like ice cream? You like ice cream, don't you?
I enjoy it in theory, as every other semi-sentient human being does. But you know what I would enjoy not in theory? That birdhouse.
John snapped his fingers. He makes a compelling case. Alright, buddy, if it's for you, it's worth it.
Finally, you see who wears the pants in this relationship. And as pants are fundamentally worse than wearing dresses or going naked, we know who is superior here.
The return of the cup. I eyed Jacques warily, but John simply laughed. What a card, right, Hannah? Right. John went inside to buy the birdhouse. I stayed behind in the main center of the mall, watching a mother and her 3-year-old son walking past. Part of the reason I didn't want to go in was because everything in that shop was so damn expensive. The very thought of walking around in there sends shivers up my spine. One wrong move and it'd be back to Amaririsu for me. But the other reason was that I needed some time away from Jacques. My feelings on him were mixed. Admittedly, it was hard for me to hang around him so much. It was clear that John wasn't going to part with him though, so I tried to suck it up. It was clear that Jacques was a well-behaved bird robot, one who was not at all inclined to Talon-based murder on a whim, but every now and then he'd flutter his wing or turn to preen himself and adrenaline shot through my body. I was constantly on edge, and it was nice to have a break, even if it was only temporary. John emerged from the shop, a large cardboard box under one arm. Sweet! I got it! Ready to head back?
What?
What? Already? But we just got here! Oh, we did, didn't we? Well, it would be hard to lug this thing all over the mall, though. John made a face at me, and I sighed. Fine, let's go back. Sweet! Thanks, Hana. I don't like that. A few days later, I was sitting in John's dorm room, wielding a heavy hammer. John poked his head over the instruction manual, examining the different planks of wood in front of us. I had no idea how this was supposed to become a birdhouse, but John was determined to see it through. Nail this in here. John pointed to a dot in the orange wood, and I lifted the nail over the spot. Here? Yep, there. Are you sure? Yes, it'll be the side. Hammer it in. I scrunched my eyes and shot and lifted the hammer. Whoa, whoa, whoa! What on earth are you doing? I froze, staring at him. Hammering the wood? Hammering your fists, more like. I'm better with pottery wheels? Give me that. John yanked the hammer from my hand, shaking his head. Kill me like a maniac, I swear. He was smiling even as he huffed. Day faded to night as we worked on the little birdhouse, fielding some harsh words from other boys on the floor and mishaps involving incorrectly attached spokes. Finally, John screwed in a peg on the front of the house and sat back on his heels. We did it! It's done! It is! A tiny orange brick house with a dirty red roof stood proudly in front of us, about as tall as my arm. It looked bigger on the box, but maybe this is better? John set the birdhouse on the edge of his desk and smiled. Now Jacques has a place to stay when he pretends to sleep. When he pretends to sleep? Well, he's got to recharge, but I have to plug him in and watch him for that to happen. Otherwise, his battery would overload and he'd literally explode. He can explode? He's got a self-destruct mechanism too, but don't worry. Only I know what phrase triggers it. Was that really a good thing? So, now that we're done, you want to take a break and play some games or something? Oh, that sounds really nice. Do you mind if we do a puzzle game? I want to practice for the tournament, so... John's face darkened as soon as I said the word puzzle, and I stopped in my tracks. Puzzles! My old nemesis! He stroked his beard, then turned to stare sullenly out the window. I timidly approached him, hands pressed to my rapidly beating heart. What? What happened between you and puzzles so many years ago? It wasn't what I wanted to happen, I tell you that. John leaned an arm over the window and then heaved a heavy sigh. I loved puzzles. They were good to me. In return, I was good to them. We were symbiotic, but then... He shuddered. They destroyed me. I was stuck on a puzzle. A puzzle I witnessed several times before, but was never able to solve. I spent hours poring over this puzzle. Days even! Finally, I decided to take a break. What can take my mind off of this? I asked myself. Unsurprisingly, I knew the answer. A new puzzle, a new challenge, something grounded in reality. I would solve a 1,000-piece puzzle. But John! I know, I should have known better. I should have been more careful. He clenched his fist, then hit his face. After a few seconds, he collected himself and resumed. I took the pieces out of the box and set to work. Both games were salty. In hindsight, I should have known better than to puzzle in front of another puzzle. So, what happened in the end? I laid a gentle hand on John's shoulders. He nodded at me, gathering strength for my touch. I finished the 1,000-piece puzzle, all except for one piece. No! That piece went missing. No! I found that piece underneath the very puzzle I was solving. No! Yes! That is as it happened. John put his face in his hands. When I returned, a shattered mess. To my beloved computer puzzles, I discovered my save was wiped out as well. I knew then what happened. The puzzle gods were angry at me. No, they are angry with me. That's why I can't go near them. He turned slowly towards me, staring at me with eyes ablaze. That is why you are here! Me? Yes, you!
Hana.
You, Hana! You are our only hope. John took my hand in his, leading towards me. His brown eyes got bigger and bigger, and what pretty eyelashes he had. Then his face just centimeters from mine. So don't mess this up, okay? Okay! He stepped away from the window and from me, returned to our rug birdhouse.
See you later.
Anyways, I got some work to do now, so I'll see you later. Wait, they were going to play a game. Summarily dismissed, not entirely sure what just happened. I gathered my things. John was inspecting his planner, frustration etched on his face. Right, thanks anyways, John. John glanced at me, and seeing the sad look on my face, frowned. No, thank you. I really enjoyed myself. It was fun. We should hang out more often. I'm not satisfied with seeing you alone on every couple of days. Damn it. That would be nice. It's such a shame you're not interested in joining the play. I would get to see you all the time then, and I swear you're just right for a tree. He shook his head sadly.
See ya.
Anyways, be seeing you! The more time I spent with John, the more attractive the prospect of joining the play became. Of course, being a tree was not something I would ever be proud to admit to. Hey Yuki Arp! How you doing? I certainly wouldn't be writing home to tell my dad about it. But if I could see John every day, it just might be worth it. John and I tried to spend more time together over the next week, but it proved to be rather difficult. Between John's play practice, our homework, BB&J, normal Boots Club meetings, and practicing for the tournament, there was hardly any time in which we could see each other. Even when we did, we were almost never alone. I was in my room, PBG in his, students wandering the fields and hallways. I'm doing pretty good. No. With all the time I was spending with John, I started to reconsider his proposal. As insulting as was his belief that I would sincerely make the best tree in his side of the Pacific, I had no doubt he sincerely meant it as a compliment. John was prone to putting his food in his mouth. He was blunt and straightforward, and usually said exactly what he meant, even if that wasn't the most tactful thing or even what his true feelings on the situation were. Besides, if you looked at it a different way, being a tree really was a special kind of talent. Why not to remain still and completely and totally lack presence? Damn it. Why not to remain still and completely and totally lack presence? Apparently, ninjas trained hard to develop this kind of ability, and here I had it naturally. Sure, pretending to be a tree wasn't exactly as cool as being a ninja, but I would be kinda cool to be in the play. Due to my stage fright, I had never been in one. If I didn't even have to speak to be a tree, it was the perfect role. I didn't think another opportunity as perfect as this would come again. So with these totally reasonable and not at all reaching justifications in mind, I went to class to talk to John. But John wasn't in class that day. It was unusual, but not totally unexpected. John was falling behind with his preparations for the play, and had been working hard. It wouldn't surprise me if he skipped class to build a set of or review costume designs. So when class finally ended, I headed to the theater, intent on accepting John's offer and helping any way I possibly could. I opened the door to the theater, it creaking with what felt like deliberate menace. The light from the open doorway cascaded through the audience seats and down onto the stage, but nobody came. The house lights were off, only a few lights dimly lit on the stage. Maybe the drama club didn't meet every day. It was weird to have those lights left on if nobody was around. I wasn't about to go fiddling in the dark with the stage equipment, though. Maybe John was resting in his dorm room. I turned to leave when something made me pause. Was that a sniff? Someone was whimpering. Concerned, I stepped down towards the stage. Hello, is anyone there? My voice echoed, bouncing off the walls backstage. There was a slight chill into the air the further down I went, and the stillness caused goosebumps to creep up on my arms. I heard it again, this time to my right. Hesitantly, I followed the sound, heart pounding hard enough to shake my vision. A dark form emerged, huddling against the wall. Who are you? What are you doing in there? I took another step closer, my vision adjusted. It was John, hunched over something in his hands. His face was pale and lined with smudged tears and sweat. It looked like he hadn't moved in hours. John! I rushed to his side as he attempted to stifle his sobs. He reached an arm towards me, and I took his hand in mine. Hana, it's terrible. What happened? Are you sick? Are you hurt? Another stifled cry, John shifted. In his lap was a tangled mess of wire, bolts and green? Realization hit me like pot shattering against the floor. That can't be! Jacques, he's... John stared at the mess in his lap, shaking his head. What happened? John howled, crouching over Jacques' mess of a body again, and I checked myself. It was too soon, and John was in too volatile of a state to really be talked to. Instead, I rubbed his back, trying to talk in a soothing voice. Well, it's okay. It'll be okay. He's a robot, so he can be repaired. He can be rebuilt if worst comes to worst. John continued shaking his head, completely inconsolable. I had no idea whether Jacques couldn't be fixed, or if he was just losing it. Instantly, I shifted into caretaker mode. I gently placed a hand on the side of John's head, seeing its near constant shaking, and pushed it to my shoulder. Shh. It'll be okay. We're going to figure something out. It'll be okay. Focus on the sound of my voice, okay? I'm still here. You're still here. You're still here. It'll be okay. I tried to murmur calming things, humming songs, and gently rocking him back and forth. Back when I was still living with my father and started having panic attacks, this is what he would do to calm me down. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it would work for John too. Eventually, John's trembling calmed. He sniffed. Then he wrapped an arm around me, hugging me like a teddy bear. We stayed like that for a while. I didn't know how much time passed, but I eventually lost feelings in my legs. Finally, John spoke. Jacques is the most important thing to me. What am I going to do if I don't have him? I pulled out of our embrace, searching his face. You'll be alright, John. You're much stronger than you think. Believe me. John swallowed, turning away from me. From somewhere within, he gathered the strength to pull himself together. After another second or two, he sat back on his heels and looked at me. Thanks, Hana. He was still very clearly upset, but at least he was coherent. I nodded. Maybe there is a way we can fix him. I'm not sure, but when I saw him like that, I just... His breathing sped up again, the beginnings of hyperventilation. I recognized him from my own experience. I stroked his hand. It's okay, we'll take him and see right now. Let's just focus on that for now. Until we know for sure, let's focus on what's happening right now. John nodded solemnly. With a gentle hand, he took off his jacket and turned to Jacques, or what was left of him. He placed everything in his jacket, then bundled it all together in his arms. When he had checked that there were no holes bolts could drop out of, he nodded at me. Let's go. He rushed from the theater to Bluebell House, heads down to avoid eye contact with the students. Thankfully, due to the chill in the air and the lack of sun, few students were out. Neither of us were interested in answering the questions that were sure to come once people saw the look on John's face. When we finally made it to Bluebell House, John asked me to fish the keys from his pocket. I did so, ignoring the blush that fought to rise to my cheeks. Somewhat irritated that even in such a grave circumstance my mind pointed to other things. That's annoying, yeah. Finally, I pushed open the door and John rushed in. As I followed, I checked the hallway. Nobody had come out of their rooms. We were, as far as I could tell, safe. John went straight to his desk in the back of the room, where a small metallic contraption was attached to his computer. Seeing as it was Jock's size, I assumed it was where he slept, or charged. I sat on the couch, trying hard to not make sound. John was, for the moment, not utterly consumed by his grief. I was terrified that something I said or did would break the spell. Thankfully, PBG was nowhere to be found. More likely he was on the field practicing for Asagao's first game against Hadafo High. John placed Jacques' remains on his desk and unwrapped his jacket, moving painstakingly slow so as not to alter the positions of the wires and gears more than they already had been. When he finally finished, he put on his jacket without seeming to realize what he was doing. Those jackets were more like their second skins, it seemed. As John paused to survey the damage, I peered over his shoulder at the tangled mess. Jock's head and claws were still visible, sort of. Some of his feathers were burnt off, along with chips in the internal wiring. Wires were cut and edges blunted. Something that looked like a microchip had a dent in it. One of his wings was completely detached from his body. John turned to me, and I hesitantly shook my head. I don't really know anything about robotics. John wiped his face with his hands, pushing his skin up towards his hairline. I know a bit, but not enough to fix this. I don't know what I'm going to do. Where'd you buy him? You could probably take him back and they could fix it. Jacques was made by a monk who lives in a technological empire on a mountaintop in Tibet. Or at least he did. He's dead now. I still get updates for that guy's grandchildren. They update the operating system for him because it was easier to figure out than how some old man managed to make both a fully functional AI and a robotic bird shell and stick the two together. I see. What were we going to do? Was a question I didn't need to ask. John's head was shaking once again. Some kind of compulsive movement he must have not even realized what was happening. He didn't say anything. I had never lost a pet. My father and I couldn't afford pets. Not in this cellar alone. But I knew a lot about grief. The echoing pain of a sudden absence. The absence of someone who was always there for you. The sudden feeling of living in a world with no safe harbor. In a world where only you could look after yourself. I laid a hand on John's shoulder. Do you want to be alone? The edges of John's lips raised in what must have counted as a smile, given the circumstances. Thank you, Hana. He sat down in his desk chair and became as still as a rock. Before I left, I grabbed a blanket sitting on what I assumed was John's bunk and draped it around his shoulders. I had a feeling he'd be like that for a while. As I approached the door, John stirred from his reverie. Please don't tell anyone about this, Hana. Please. I nodded. He turned back to his desk. I crept out of the room, shutting the door gently behind me. PBG would come back from practice eventually, and he would find John there. PBG had a very calming personality. He'd be able to handle things. He'd be able to help a little, at least to keep watch over John. I wish there was more I could do. It wasn't until I was on my walk home that the full impact of what happened hit me. I was so caught up in helping John overcome his shock that I forgot that I, too, knew and cared for Jacques. Not as much as John, no way, but I'd grown fond of the little bird's snark. He's not going to sass me ever again, is he? Hot tears rolled down my cheeks. I wiped my face and doubled my pace. Like John, I didn't want people to see me cry. Of course, there was no way I could avoid not when I lived with her. I opened the door to my room, and as soon as I saw the flickering movements of Mai's cold sweater, I ducked my head.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Hana! How'd the whole tree thing go? Good. I turned away, setting my back on the floor next to my desk. Then I stood and stared at it. I hadn't really thought past getting to my room. I was just trying to get to it so I wouldn't explode in front of everyone. So I had some place to process things. Now Mai was here, and all I could do was to hold myself together Planning the next step had fallen to the wayside. Hana, are you alright? You don't look too good. I swallowed. Yeah, sitting around like a zombie wasn't a good way to get people to not worry about you. I attempted a bright smile. Of course, why wouldn't be? Why wouldn't I be? My chin wobbled in the middle of my reply, and the look on Mai's face told me she didn't trust me as far as she could throw a semi-truck. Come here. I sat down on my bed and patted the space next to her. I glanced from her to the door. If I wanted to, I could run to the bathroom. If I did, a stall would definitely be empty, and I could cry by myself in peace. I would still know something happened, but at least we wouldn't have to deal with the awkwardness that someone crying in front of you and that was someone crying in front of you and not knowing how to comfort them. Maya followed my gaze through the door and slapped the bed. Sit! I obediently sat down next to her. She turned to face me full on, and the presence of her big, empathetic eyes staring at me was uncomfortable. I grabbed Mr. Bunny. Mr. Bunny had always been there for me in times like these. He was the only one who saw me cry about things like this. I buried my face into his soft fur. Tell me what's wrong, Hana. You can't always keep things to yourself. You already do that way too much. I do not. My voice was muffled by Mr. Bunny's fur, but Mai just chuckled. Sure you don't, because I can't hear crying in your bed on bad nights. Immediately heat sprung to my face. Had I woken her? How many times had she hurt me? Why hadn't she said anything? I rubbed my hands together, shaking my head. Mai stared at me, patiently, like a Buddhist monk in meditation. I sighed, but then another thought occurred to me. As sad as I was about Jacques' passing, John was even more upset. Far more upset. He asked me not to tell anybody, but what was I supposed to do? It might be nicer to tell Mai, but it's not really any of my business. It must be if you're heaving sighs like that. She wrapped an arm around my back, resting her head on my shoulder. Come on, Hana, lay it on me. The old Meister's got you covered. She nestled her head into my shoulder, and my heart squeezed. Well, damn it. I ran into John today in the theater. When I went to look for him, at first it looked like nobody was there. But I heard a noise, and I found him crouched in the corner, and I auditioned for the role, but I didn't do as well as he thought I would, and now I might not get the part. I winced as the lie slipped through my mouth. I didn't deserve dishonesty from me, but at the same time, John was a private person. He didn't trust easily, and this was very clearly a private matter, one that didn't belong with the rest of the gossip that spread daily between classroom doors. You should have just said it was a secret between you and John. Like, really. Just like the choice we had with Jared's route. It should have been like that. But anyway. It wasn't necessarily that I thought Mai would tell people if she knew, but the potential harm was far, far too great for me to cave in a moment of weakness. Even if I was sad, even if I was grieving again, even if I could use some comfort. Oh, Hana!
What a jerk!
What's up with that kid? He's always so rude. He spent all his time telling you were perfect for the part, and now he's going back on his word? Don't worry, Hana, you're still the best tree in my eyes, and we both know that's what matters the most. Mai winked, then he pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry that you're sad, though. I do hope you end up feeling better soon. Life's too short to spend it worrying about some dumb boy. Tears once again filled my eyes, and I patted Mai's arm. Thank you, Mai. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, I can see where the story is going. I eagerly awaited John's arrival the next day. Images of his distraught form alone in his room having plagued me all night. Even though I knew he needed time alone and he was grateful I left him, I still felt like I abandoned him when he needed me most. I had Mai to help me when I was down. At best, I left John with PBG, but if he didn't tell PBG anything, then I just left him to suffer alone. I twiddled my thumbs by my desk, turning every time I heard the door open. No. Not him either. But PBG and John were roommates. Shouldn't John be with him? Jeez, Hana, you're gonna get whiplash the way you're whirling around like that. You sure you're alright? Yeah, I'm fine. Everything is fine. Yet again, Ma knew better, but she didn't press the issue. Apparently after last night, if I didn't want to talk, she wasn't going to make me. Not while we were in class, at least. When the warning bell played, I finally got up and crossed to PBG's desk. I needed answers.
PBG.
Hey, PBG.
Hey.
Hana, what brings you here to the side of the room?
Well,
The PBG not know? I needed to talk to John about something, but he isn't here yet, is he? Oh yeah, he wasn't feeling well this morning. He said he was just gonna stay in bed all day. He pursed his lips. John's been acting really weird since yesterday, though. That morning he was fine. I mean, you saw him. When I got back from practice yesterday, he was in bed. He didn't want to eat. He didn't even want to go eat. That's how bad he felt. He wasn't coughing or anything either. I hope he's not depressed. Yeah, I hope not too. I tried to smile or do something to not raise suspicions, but PBG cocked up an eyebrow at me. Hana, you wouldn't know to... God damn it! Fucking... Why can't I control my middle finger? Hana, you wouldn't happen to know anything about this, would you? Me? John made me promise not to tell anybody, and I wanted to remain faithful to that promise. But this wasn't like telling mine. PBG was one of John's best friends, and his roommate. If something was going on with John, PBG was the person most likely to notice, most likely to worry, most likely to be able to do something about it. What if I didn't tell him and something bad happened? But if John ever found out, I knew he wasn't going to like it. Okay. Page 6. I know. But my middle finger is on the right mouse button, and that accesses this the save menu. I think I should tell PPG. Do you guys think the same? I think telling PPG would be the smart thing to do. Because they are roommates after all. And he can only help. You don't want to spoil it for me. Okay, I'm gonna tell PBG. You can't tell anybody. I wasn't even supposed to find out, I don't think. But I want you to be able to take care of him. PBG nodded gravely and bent towards me. I cupped my hands around his ear. Shock broke. PBG snapped upright, a look of horror on his face. He wasn't in the room last night, now that I think about it. Oh man, this is not good. You're not going to tell him I told you, are you? PBG looked at me and smiled as if he were holding a baby kitten. He patted the top of my head lightly. Of course not, I'm not stupid. I know you wouldn't want him to know, but thanks for telling me. I grumbled as I straightened my bow, smiling in spite of myself. I was glad I could rely on PBG. I'll try to just pretend I noticed it, even if I bring it up. If I even bring it up. The loss of a pet can be really hard, so I know what he's going through. PBG touched a hand to his neck, suddenly staring into space.
hey,
You okay? Sorry? Oh, anyways, I'll make sure to take care of him. Thanks for letting me know. No, thank you. I'm glad you're looking after him. You're a good friend. PBG smiled, and then tipped his head back. Yeah, I know. I shoved him, giggling, then went back to my desk. Still, I wasn't comfortable just leaving John alone for the day. As Miss Shizuka entered and started taking roll, Just hold on. As Miss Shizuka entered and started taking a roll, I made up my mind. I had to go check on him. As soon as the bell rang, I shot out of my chair.
Hana!
Hana!
See you later.
Don't worry about me, I'll see you after lunch! I sped out of the room, evading students pouring into the hall, and turned away from the crowd towards Bluebell House. I passed the sign where John first stood and told me that we were in the same class, and then speed walked past the field I got lost in that very first day at the Asagao. If John was suffering on his own, I wasn't about to go sit around and let him.
John.
John, it's me, Hana. You weren't in class today, so I was worried, so I came to check up on you. Won't you let me in? There was only silence from inside John's room, and suddenly fear crept into my heart. John? John? You're not, like, sick or anything, right? You haven't done anything rash, right?
Hey!
John! The doorknob turned with a soft click, and the door opened without about an inch. I peered into the crack, unable to see anything but the blue walls of John's room.
John!
John? Again, there was no response. After a moment's hesitation, I gathered my courage and pushed the door open. John sat huddled in the center of the room. The blanket I laid over his shoulders the afternoon before drawn tightly over his body. It looked like he hadn't slept or even brushed his teeth since I saw him last. Even his clothes looked to be the same ones he was wearing the day I left him, his jacket smudged with oil from Jacques' gears. I closed the door softly behind me and sat across from him on the sofa, tucking my legs underneath me.
John!
John? His eyes were red and puffy. There was no doubt in my mind that he had been endlessly crying. I'd been there before. Though not exactly. I knew something of what he was going through. I reached into my backpack and took out a small bottle of water, sliding it over to him. For the first time, John responded to me. He grabbed the bottle and tried to twist the top open. His grip was weak, and after 2 failed attempts, he stared sadly at the bottle. Oh! How weak was he? Had he been eating or drinking at all since yesterday? I twisted the top of the bottle, then handed it back to him. Within a few quick gulps, the bottle was empty. My fears were confirmed. He probably wasn't eating or drinking. He thumped the bottle on the table, the hollow echo sounding loud in the silence of the room. Then, for the first time since I came in, he looked at me. I'm going to quit the drama club.
What?
You're what? He held up a hand as if to stall my questions, glancing away. You don't understand. Jacques was my star, my queen. He was my everything. I can't go on without him. So I might as well quit. Nothing will ever be the same. John quitting the drama club was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of, especially with the depth of extremes his own drama queen personality would get to. Still, if John set his mind on something, that was little I or anybody else could do to dissuade him. I bit on my lip and nodded. But after seeing his passion for his work, after finally coming to the conclusion that I wanted to join the play to be with him, I didn't want him to quit. Not after all the hard work he'd gone through. I think I think John needs the drama club. Even if this was what John decided to do, I knew better than that. He knew better than that. This was a decision made in a momentary fog of sadness. It wasn't something he could do. He should stick to, or else he would regret it down the line. So, I really don't think you should quit. John turned to stare at me blankly, wrapping the sheet around his head so he looked like a nun. It made me want to laugh, but I held it in. You know how much a drama club means to you, and I'm sure Jacques wouldn't want you to quit either. I'm sure he would be on your shoulder right now, giving you a ton of sass. For the first time, I realized one of the reasons Jacques was so important to John. He balanced out John's personality. Jacques was able to quickly nip John's anxiety in the bud with humor, refocusing John's thoughts on Jacques' sass instead of letting him descend into the darkness. I knew I couldn't replace Jacques, but maybe... Don't tell me what Jacques would have wanted. How could you even know? You didn't even like him. What? No, I loved Jacques. John, I'm just as sad as you that he's gone. As soon as it was out of my mouth, I wanted to take it back. That wasn't what I meant to say. Anna. The warning was clear. I nodded and hung my head. I messed up there. It was definitely my fault, but all I wanted to do was make it better. John shouldn't leave the drama club. I glanced up at him. He was staring wistfully out the window, the clouds having finally parted and let in some sunlight. As the sky reflected in his eyes, an idea suddenly hit me. Wasn't there another option? John heaved a heavy sigh, resuming his dejected state. I wasn't sure how he would take it, but it was worth after. But it was worth a try. After all, it was just a suggestion. All I had to do was say no if he didn't want to do it. He wouldn't get upset about a suggestion, would he? I think I should go back to that choice. I'm going to support his decision. If that's what you want to do, I think the drama club would be missing out on a great president. You're still dissuading him. Well, not as much as first, but I think the drama club would be missing out on a great president and a wonderful performer, not to mention a certain tree. But if that's what you want to do, you should do it. You need time to yourself right now. Okay. John looked up at me in anguish. He reached a tentative hand out towards me and grabbed it in my own.
Hana.
Thank you, Hana. I'm glad you understand. He looked like he was going to cry again, but for a different reason. I rubbed the back of his hand with my thumb, nodding slowly. This is actually like that's actually how I would deal with something like this. I would I would try to persuade him, but in the end, it's your choice. That's the thing. John was glad I supported him, which was good, but as I stared at him, a sudden idea flicked into my mind. Wasn't there another option? John heaved a heavy sigh, resuming his dejected state. I wasn't sure how he would take it, but it was worth a try. After all, it was just a suggestion. All I had to do was say no if he didn't want to do it. He wouldn't get upset about a suggestion, would he? John, I was thinking, why don't you just go to the pet store and get an actual bird? Well, it looks exactly like Jacques, and you can tell everyone they're the same bird and just pretend everything is the same. John looked at me in surprise, but didn't say anything. Pushed through. I could even go with you if you want. Then you could keep going with the play. You wouldn't have to quit the drama club and nobody will ask bad questions. What do you think? Ha! John released something that sounded like laughter, but it wasn't. It definitely wasn't. It was an eh. In the end, you need to be supportive of their decision. Yes. Yeah. How could you suggest such a thing, Hana? Replace my precious Jacques like he's a piece of meat or an object? Well, he is an object. He's a computer program. Or he was, I guess. That's not... Hana, you're being very stupid right now. What the fuck is wrong with you? John slammed his hand on the table and I jumped to my feet, somewhat shaken. Over my dead body, Hana. I never thought you were this kind of person. I'm glad I found out. Found out though. Can't believe I almost made you a tree in my play. Calm down, it was just a suggestion. If you don't like it, you don't have to do anything about it. Get out of here. This is a sacred space. The likes of you aren't welcome. John glared at me like the patriarch of some 1950s family, and I picked up my bag. I was just trying to help. Out! I stumbled out into the hallway, the door slamming behind me. As much as I knew he wouldn't like the suggestion, that was no reason for him to react the way he did. That was indeed very irrational of him. I was his friend, not an alien in human skin. He should have given me the benefit of the doubt. Should have trusted where I was coming from. No. I shook my head. Grieved it more than... Yeah. It's grief. Grieved it more than make people sad. It made them sensitive, stressed, and volatile. Looking back at the months after my mother died, I did my best to contain my emotions. But even then I lashed out, especially at the people I loved most. John was going through a hard time and I might have made things worse for him. No longer hungry, I decided to skip lunch and go straight back to class. I could use the extra time for practice anyways. 15 tournament points. No. It wasn't a bad idea though. In fact, maybe a living bird would be better for John. It would be better for John, able to respond naturally to him and get gently upset if he messes up. It could be a learning experience, right? He won't make that Jacques or Juliet. The next day, John was back in class. I didn't feel confident enough to go up and talk to him, but it was just as well. Even sitting in class, he evaded my gaze. It was as if I had physically wounded him by suggesting to replace Jacques. The very possibility of poison to his soul. PPG doted on him, making sure he came to lunch and checking over his homework before he turned it in. Occasionally he and I made eye contact from across the room, and he'd give me a thumbs up. Those were my only indication that John was doing okay. But at least John was around. Even if we weren't talking, that put my mind at ease. The third day after John came back to class, we were all gathered in the cafeteria for lunch. For the first time, John wasn't avoiding my gaze, and everyone was unusually cheery. Then Shane said something he never should have said.
Hey.
John, Jacques hasn't been around for a while. What's up with that? My fork dropped onto my tray. Across the way, PPG spilled half his packet of peanuts. I traded looks with him. Well, I mean, you know, sometimes birds need to migrate for a while. Jacques just went on a little vacation. Migration? You mean what birds do for the winter? It's spring now. Heck, it's almost summer. Jacques' species doesn't even do that kind of thing besides. John scoffed. Well, thank you so much for telling me what I already know about my own bird. I'm saying Jacques wanted to take a bit of a break, okay? Don't go questioning me just because you're such an elitist, British know-it-all. That's not what I was doing. It just didn't make any sense. So you thought I was lying? He said abruptly. PPG put a hand on his shoulder. Hey dude, calm down. Let's just finish the rest of the meal, eh? Damn it. I can't believe this! John gathered his tray and stormed out of the room. I watched him go with worry in my heart. He wouldn't want company after that, would he? I turned back to my plate, but PPG cleared his throat. He jerked his head towards the door. Do you think I should go? Every time I tried to help John with his problems, he completely pushed me away. I didn't want to make him angry again. What should I do? I at least want to look. I think... I would go after him and then, like, check if he needs space. Sorry, I'll be going on ahead. As I stood and gathered my things, something like relief crossed the others' faces. Just let him do whatever he needs to do. I'm sure you'll help. The others nodded and murmured their support. I smiled. Thanks, guys. Just before I left, Shane grabbed a hold of my arm. Tell John I'm sorry too. I will, Shane. Don't worry. As I dumped my tray, I found myself chuckling. Shane and John were more similar than I thought. They always found a way to say just the wrong thing at exactly the wrong time. Okay, that's something I do too sometimes. Finding the wrong timing to say the wrong thing. Not on purpose or anything, but it just happens. I found Jacques sitting on a bench just outside the cafeteria, gazing into the branches of one of Asagao's many well-maintained trees. He didn't look up as I sat down. I didn't say anything. Instead, I kept him company, listening to the wind gently whistle through the branches. I'm sorry about what I said, Hana. Don't worry about it. It's all water under the bridge. I shouldn't have... I know you were in a rough place. I should have thought before I suggested it to you. John nodded slowly. Shane says he's sorry. No, he doesn't have to be sorry. I'm the one who overreacted. He just says what's on his mind, doesn't he? Yeah, it's what I like about him. There wasn't much either of us could say. I wanted to broach the subject of the pet store again, but I wasn't about to destroy the relative peace of this moment. You shouldn't. For the first time, John wasn't mired in grief or denial. For the first time, he just seemed kind of quiet. I'm sorry I've been so difficult. Hey, standard utility vehicle. Sad John makes you sad, yeah. I'm pretty sad because of this. It's a good story. I shook my head. The circumstances are trying. The circumstances are trying. Honestly, you managed to hold yourself together well. He nodded slowly, and a small smile crossed his lips. Thank you for telling PBG. I didn't... He chuckled softly, and I knew there was no point in denying it. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure someone was looking out for you. You did. And you were looking out for me, too. Thank you. With a sigh, he stood up, wiggling the creaks out of his legs. I'm heading back to my dorm. Tell Miss Shizuka I wasn't feeling well as well as I thought I was. You really shouldn't skip this much class. You already missed a full day. He shrugged. It's only school. I'll manage. With a half-hearted wave, he disappeared down the lane to Bluebell House. I frowned as I watched him go. At least, he seemed to be getting better? No, that was hard to say for sure. Sometimes I thought he was doing better, but then sometimes there were regressions. But I guess that was just how situations like this went. At least he was self-aware. Self-awareness went a long way when it came to things like this. When I got to the dorm that evening, exhausted after the tension of the day and having to explain PBG and Shane why John had come to class, all I wanted to do was sit and practice my game. But of course, things were never that easy. Aw, you lose! Thanks for playing! John, if you would just tell people what's wrong, they would help you. Did you lose again? Yeah, I moved to this new level of difficulty and now it's... You know, I mean, it's way harder!
Real.
Really, let me see. I climbed into my bed and sat against the back wall, positioned just right so she could see over my shoulder. Okay, go! I stared at her, not really willing to start playing again. I got the feeling that my watching me wasn't going to help me get any better. Well, go! With a sigh, I restarted the game. The loading screen cleared and I searched for my first few combos as the game's clock counted down. 3, 2, 1, go! I started off for a section of pink blocks to the left. No, there, the blue one! What? The blue one on the other side! Not entirely sure what she was talking about. It shoots to a set of blocks on the other side. Not that one! Oh, it set off a combo anyways. Look at you go! I gritted my teeth and looked for more combos, trying desperately hard to concentrate. Suddenly my finger slipped off my phone. I was bouncing up and down on my mattress, making it difficult for me to keep things steady. Do you mind? Oh, sorry, I'm just so proud of you, Hana.
Yeah!
Look at you kicking butt! I frowned. Where was the combo I was going for? I swore I just had it. But by the time I found it again, my opponent found theirs. I heard a block drop by their monsters into my field, and I lost the game. It was the fastest game I had lost yet. Wow, that was rough. Wanna go again? I think I noticed some flaws in your technique. No, I think that's enough for tonight. I have homework to do. Aw, if you say so. I set my phone aside, making a mental note to set aside time for practice when Mai was at volleyball. I scooted over to the edge of my bed, patting me on the back with two of her famous back-breaking thumbs. I really am so proud of you. I know you're going to make history and I can't wait for it. I smiled in spite of my annoyance.
Yeah.
I hope so. Thanks, Mai. No problem. Thanks for even trying.
Yay!
Thanks to you, I'm finally close to my beloved Jared. Yeah. Why don't you do your homework? Fine, if I have to. I'm glad you're feeling better now, too, Hana. Did you say something? Nope, not at all. The next day, John stayed for the entire class period. Let's see. He still looked worse for wear, a good deal paler and less cheerful than he was before everything went down. But at least he was here. Sheen tapped him on the shoulder at the beginning of class, making some kind of hand motion. I didn't get. It looked like he was trying to throw a baseball. John motioned back, a slight smile on his face, and Shane finally relaxed, a smile breaking through his usually cold demeanor. I tried to hide my smile, but couldn't. Shizuka kept glancing at me like I was secretly making fun of her or something. And that's why the international government bodies agreed to set aside a decent sum of money in case of alien attack. The combination of the XCOM plans and the Kobayashi Maru prove that humans... I should have done a better voice for her. That was not good. I was so happy to see him finally recovering that I could barely contain myself. As soon as this class ended, I bounded up to John, happy as a clam. John, hi! Before he even had a chance to speak, my request burst forth. Do you mind coming on a walk with me? I feel like I haven't gotten to talk with you in a while, and I kind of miss it. Despite the suddenness of my request, John smiled. Of course I will. I've been meaning to talk to you about something anyways. As we gathered our things and left the class together, it was impossible not to notice mine and Shane's leering faces. I stuck a tongue out at them both, then skipped out with John. John and I headed out to campus, where we picked a direction and took off. It was different walking through the academy with John, not worrying about getting to class on time or having a particular goal in mind. The buildings that usually looked so oppressive in their scale and ornateness, especially compared to my old concrete building of a high school, now seemed like gleaming soldiers protecting us on our way. Suddenly, the academy was beautiful and vast. Despite a relatively small number of students and the handful of buildings that made up the campus, Asagao owned the land around for miles. The wild rolling spaces outside of the main hub of the school were common areas, kept clean and safe by campus patrols. And that's why so many students felt comfortable resting or eating in the fields nearby. It was kind of like a paradise, wasn't it? John and I walked through one of the fields together, smiling as the wind tousled our hair. I really love it here. Oh yeah, it's not bad. The smile slid off my face. John seemed preoccupied, and a cloak of disappointment fell around me. Beauty had cast a spell on me, and for some reason I expected John to be acting the way he did when I first met him, when we first took that walk across the Asagao fields together. Of course he would just magically be better. I, of all people, should know that. I wish there was something I could do to help you. You and Jacques were such good friends. You were there for each other when it mattered the most. Anybody with eyes could tell how much love and friendship you had for each other, and even though one of you wasn't technically alive. Honestly, I kind of envied it. I wish I could be as close to someone as you were to Jacques.
Really?
Really? You aren't that close with Mai? Mai and I are close, but, well, I was kind of hoping we could be that close. I said it! I put my hands on my burning cheeks. John laughed. Damn it. Well, I'm touched, frankly. No, but really, if you and I could keep spending time together and I could maybe make handling your loss a little easier, that would make me so happy. That's super cheesy. You're all cheese, aren't you? No. John laughed heartily. Coming from anybody else, I'm not sure I would believe them, but from you, Hana... John slipped his hands into mine. I believe you. John held my hand for the rest of the walk, right up until we went our separate ways in front of Primrose House. As I watched him leave, I held my hand to my chest. It still had his warmth. I wasn't sure where John and I stood regarding our feelings for one another. With everything that happened, it didn't seem like the time to burden John with questions about where we were at, or whether this was going. Certainly feelings were there, even if we never explicitly said anything about them. But I thought that just as well. The way things were progressing and the way we felt, there were things that didn't need to be said, or at least not yet, not now. I was sitting in my room with Mai, watching a rather violent show about a group of humans trapped inside giant-sized walls trying to free themselves from their giant-like enemies. When there came a knock at my door. That's Attack on Titan. Mai paused the episode on her computer, rolling her eyes.
I can't believe this.
Wonderful. Great. Go ahead and get the door. I'm sure it's for you. As Mai hummed the series is opening, I hastily crossed to the door and pulled it open.
John!
John stood at my door, a broad grin on his face. Hearing the music, he peered into my room. I drew the door closed behind me and stepped out into the hallway. What brings you here? Lightning fast, John grabbed my wrist and dragged me down the hall. What? Shh! John dragged me out and off to one side of Primrose House before finally letting go. I rubbed my wrist, trying to keep a little of my anger. Yeah, it is. What was that about? Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we weren't overheard. I thought some more about your proposition. My proposition? Plan New Jacques 0.5. Why 0.5? You don't wanna know. Anyways, I thought maybe this could be a thing, right? Maybe this could totally work. Not really, but maybe. We could totally do the thing. We could do this thing. And then I thought, well, why should we stop there? Jacques, God rest his soul, was always the star of any scene he was in. A little scene stealer he was. I'll never be able to match his God-given charm and charisma. No way, no how. But I could at least get a new bird and teach it all of Juliet's lines in the play. There's a dog barking outside. I don't quit the play. The show goes on, and it's a touching homage to Jacques, even if nobody knows the truth about what happened. What do you think? He beamed at me. Hesitantly, very haltingly, I put a hand on his arm. John, don't you think it would be easier to get an actual human to play Juliet's role? Of course not! What are you, crazy? He patted me on the head. Silly Hana, you know nothing of showbiz, but it's your innocence that makes you cute. Anyways, I decided that you are going to the pet store with me, and you will help me pick out a suitably intelligent replacement for my darling Jacques, God rest his soul. But we have to be sneaky about it. Despite the fact that John made this decision independent of any input from me, I was excited. For the first time, John was looking and acting like himself again. The color was back in his face, and he was joking around in that fast-talking way he usually had. There was no way I could turn him down, not after the week he had, and not with how much I wanted to be around him with Jacques' shadow looming heavy over us.
Yeah.
Of course! I offered before, didn't I? Yeah! Great! Thanks, Hana! John clammed his hands over mine, shaking them fervently. This will be great! Really, it will! You won't regret this at all! Why would I ever regret it? But John already let go and was heading down the lane.
See you later.
I'll see you this weekend! We'll take the train to the city, so maybe don't wear your uniform. Of course not! Do you take me for an idiot? I'm also like that, saying things that are basically like redundant. Like, make sure you do this. The other person obviously knows. I scooted back over on her bunk to make room for me as I entered the room, hiding something sheepishly behind her back. What have you got there? Definitely not a cookie.
What's up?
How'd it go? Everything good with Mr. Birdman? I think so. I really think so. And that's where chapter 3 starts. Okay. I'm gonna save here. Thank you guys all so much for watching. We've been streaming for about 1.5 hours now. 1.5 hours. I need to go study and prepare for my exam tonight. So thank you guys all so much for watching, and see you guys next time.